Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta like butter here, and we are excited to bring to you another blockbuster. But before I do that, I want to just say you're live streaming. What that means for those who don't know what that is we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and the feed I like the most these days is Rumble, because we can talk and there's not as much censorship through that fantastic feed. Listen, if you're with us and you can put a chat comment, please do. We'll bring it onto the screen. We'll share it with our guest. Before we bring our guest on, I'd like to add something to the screen here and just tell you a bit about what's been happening with the show. Because of you, the show has been nominated for awards in the last year and a half, and it's only because of you and the quality of the guests that keep coming to us. We are ranked number 2 in podcasting, the top 30 CEO podcasts. We're the number 2, as rated by FeedSpot, a California rating agency. Also, FeedSpot gave us the Canadian Leadership Podcast twice in the last year, the top 10. And I didn't even know who these guys were, but Million Podcasts, I guess there's over 1 million of us, Million Podcasts said, you know what, you're in the top 100 storytelling podcasts. Well, that's a lot about what we do here. So thank you to you, everyone, for bringing us success. We're booked out in at least 3 months in the studio every week, and there's a wait list to get on it. So let's go from there and tell you a bit about our guest. Before I get us rolling, I printed out some research on him. His bio, you can find him on LinkedIn, Neil Callanan. He spent over 15 years, I think over 17 years or so, helping organizations connect storytelling to measure outcomes across culture, commerce, and cause. And there's a lot more to him. We're going to hear about that. He was once an employee, and then he became a founder. Lots of stories. We're going to hear about his life as well. But let's listen for a minute to what I call the show hook. So I'm going to set this up. We'll edit it out in the final production. So stand by, everybody. What would it be like to know a little bit about our guest, Neil, from the inside and out? I'm sitting with a truth that doesn't care about credentials. Some things in life refuse to be measured. You can build frameworks. You can track outcomes. You can prove impact on paper. And then life takes your child from you. There's no metric for that. My guest today has spent more than 17 years helping organizations connect stories to results. He knows numbers. He knows structure. He knows how to translate meaning into outcomes that boards can understand. And then, 15 months or so ago, his son, Shea, passed away. And nothing fit anymore. Not the work, not the language, not the definition of impact he had built his life around. And I'm not bringing him here to talk about just grief as an idea. He doesn't perform it. He doesn't wrap it in inspiration. He writes quietly, honestly, from the place where the questions don't resolve. What does it mean to honor someone you love when connection itself begins to change? What happens when the measurements that once defined success suddenly feel hollow? What do you keep? And what do you let go of when life redraws the map without asking? This is a conversation about fatherhood and loss and business, about leadership after experiencing trauma, about the difference between motion and meaning, and about the courage it takes to rebuild from the inside and out. Because when the metrics fail, something else has to lead. I'm Tom Dutta. I'm your host today. And joining me now from the green room is my guest, Neil Callanan. Neil, welcome to the show.
Okay, thanks for having me, Tom.
All right. Let's just let that sit for a moment. I realize that you've done a lot of interviews and you're such an interesting guy, but that's a tough opening. Just tell us as we start, and I'm going to get us right into a picture here. Tell us about Shea.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for giving me the chance to do so. Our buddy Shea was, like all 4.5-year-olds, pretty mischievous, and liked to kind of pester his sister and run around and be a boy and do all the little things boys like to do. And
I mean, look at that smile on his face. Where is that picture taken? It's on a boat, obviously, but whereabouts is that?
It's around pretty close to. We have a lake house in the Finger Lakes in New York, and in summers we got to spend a lot of time there. So both my wife and I think have some really strong memories about the place as connected to him, because it was just a place he really thrived.
Now, I'm a visual, but he's looking at something. What would he be looking at?
It's a good question. Be pretty happy to look at anything on a boat.
Yeah.
If he was going anything over zero, he was a go faster kind of guy. So
yeah, it sounds like a little bit like Dad, and everybody always asks, right? Like my parents, my mom and dad. Dad's gone, mom's still here, but like who does he take after the most? Who's he look like the most? You or mom? We don't know what mom looks like.
Definitely was. My daughter is a facsimile of my wife, and my Shea was very much me in both looks and personality. I think a lot of people would tell you he emulated a lot of behaviors that I had at that age, and maybe still do have. So
that's awesome.
All me, all boy, all me.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to move into Plato's Garden with you now. Are you ready to go to Plato's Garden and do some storytelling with me?
Sure.
I want to just share with the audience, because I'm so humbled by you, man, especially having to deal with a story like this live. A lot of people don't know what to say when they meet people who have lost loved ones, especially children. And you write a blog. We'll get to that later. And I went to your blog and I read some stuff there, and it says, here's what you do when you meet me. Here's what I want you to talk about. Here's what I don't. So I never would have put this picture up and started this way, the show with other people. But you wanted me to talk. You wanted me to bring him to the forefront. So God bless you for that, man. Let's go to the next slide here. So just going to go one further. All right. So we're going to set this up. What would it be like to go into Plato's Garden with Neil? All right. We're here with Neil Callanan in Plato's Garden. And for the audience, Neil, who are going to watch the video, Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, and the founder of the Platonist school of thought in the academy, from the Greek word academia. Apparently, it was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world, Neil. What we're going to do today is, you won't know this because I interview through these three areas, but we're going to try and create a mesh of three areas of your life and look at the context behind who you are. First is macro, and what was going on in the world around you as you grew and started your public work. Could start from childhood right up till today. 2 is mezzo, what's happening or what influenced you in the sector where you built your work. And 3, micro, which is what we started with, what's happening in your personal life. Some go back right to childhood, as I mentioned. That's influenced you. And what we hope to do with this is the audience, Neil, will take everything and do critical thinking, take all the nuggets, mesh it together and go, we kind of get a deeper meaning of Neil's story, and through that they can learn more about themselves. So just to help us, I'm going to get us going, and we're going to riff on this together. I'll start in micro. He told us some things about Shea. Can you just fill in the blank about what happened to him? There was some writing about a disease and how old he was when he passed.
Sure. So Shea was 4.5 when he passed. He and his sister both have epilepsy, and Shea passed away from a condition called SUDEP, which is a fancy way of saying a death in an epilepsy patient with an unexplained cause, right? Sudden unexplained death in an epilepsy patient. Epilepsy impacts like 1 in 29 people, and SUDEP is sort of the newer way that they're trying to take some of the mystery out of all of it. So when Shea was, like I said, about 4.5, he passed in his sleep, and hopefully it was a peaceful experience for him. And honestly, suit up was not something we had any real. We had talked to epileptologists and neurologists, every person you could ever imagine, and suit up was not something we were familiar with until we lost our son. And so since then, it's sort of been a big part of our lives and understanding the gaps in education and understanding sort of what can be done to prevent it for the next family.
Yeah. Well, first of all, sorry for your loss, and a hard story to tell publicly sometimes. So this epilepsy is something many people are familiar with, but not the dynamics of what causes it, it's genetic and whatnot. Did you learn what the cause was, because you have 2 children?
Well, I mean, honestly, the causes are neurological, typically hereditary. My wife also had epilepsy and some seizures when she was young.
I see.
So it can present. The thing about epilepsy is it presents in very different ways.
Yep.
And the thing that is, I think, potentially most challenging about when my wife and I look back is we would have said that Shea was the healthy kid, right? My daughter has dealt with a lot of epilepsy related inpatient hospital stays and monitoring, and she's on medications, and we carry rescue medications everywhere. And that was not an experience that Shea had. He had only had a few seizures, maybe 5 in his life, where there's been times where my daughter would have 5 in a month. So he was kind of the healthier kid. It is something that, once you know one kid's got it, you're pretty sure that the other one also has the same genetic SC1A formation. And so, I would say, it's a mysterious disease in that they don't often know what the pure causes are. And you can spend a lot of money getting neurological testing and still walk away with no answers. You just know, yes, there's a mutation, and we'd like, and here in the States, that might cost you $50,000 to get that knowledge. And then they'll say, okay, great. We don't know how to tell you how to deal with that necessarily. We just now be safe with that information.
Wow. I'm just going to put a different view on the screen here. I like your studio, by the way, and your space there. If you look in the back here, I point to it a lot. You see there's a replica of a human brain.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of people know my story. I fell on my head in 18 and had a serious brain injury. It took me 5 years to walk straight, to talk like I do now. I still have some vision challenges. But I learned a lot about the brain and the intricacies and studied neuroscience. So I appreciate you talking about epilepsy. Let me just ask you last question on this part of the story. Was there a point in Shea's evolution as a child where you knew he was going to pass, or was it just
no, it was entirely unexpected. And I would think for most people who have experienced suit up, it's almost all the commonality is the unexpected piece of that, right? So, like I said, my daughter wears, wearable devices and cameras and all the things in a room, and has always, from a, safety standpoint. And that was not something that we had the same experience with Shea. And so it's entirely unexpected. And honestly, the more we know about the space, the story I like about this unexpectedness of it is my wife ran the Chicago Marathon last year on behalf of a suit up organization.
Oh, great.
So we had a bunch of friends who also ran it, and we were sort of sitting post-race talking to a group of folks, and they were all there because their 30-year-old friend had passed away unexpectedly, having not had a seizure in a really long time. Hadn't really, many of them didn't even know he had epilepsy. And so it's something that impacts people in different ways, but I would say that the commonality is that it's entirely unexpected for most families who deal with it.
I understand. This is for your wife. Congratulations. What's her first name? Lori, congratulations. And she's another heroic part of this story. So let's get back into Plato's Garden. Thanks for updating us on what happened. Neil, you've written that honoring someone and staying connected to them are not the same thing. How did that realization change you as a father and as a man?
I'm a person who writes a lot. And like you said, you were able to sort of see some of that in my writing. And most of my writing is for me, I would say, more than for anybody else. But there's some piece of it that feels more authentic and more visceral when I push it out to the world. And so in some cases, like I said, I am trying to coach people on how to not be so awkward when they interact with me after my son passed. But in some cases, it's mostly just about me processing my own thoughts. And, you know, I think you can honor someone forever. And I think we will. I think we'll always honor our son. We have honored him in every way possible and continue to do so. But connection is, you know, it's a non-replenishing resource. And at least for me, right? Everybody has their own experience. I know that there are people who can feel very much connected in their way to folks who they've lost. For me, connection is about how confident you are that your experience that you're having is actually based in a reality that existed, right? And so I think, especially with a kid, when you lose a kid, there's a lot of times where you start to question, are you remembering a memory or are you remembering the thing? And I think you go through this phase of kind of remembering memories.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers anything perfectly, right? So then it becomes a question of, well, like, did he really draw that thing? Did he really say that thing? Is this, you know, the thing he would have really loved? And you can have those memories, but I think they become a little bit harder to grasp at.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I can just put some on the screen here because we're live for the podcast. Eventually they won't see it, but I'm going to put up your blog page. It comes up to obviously the picture that we were looking at, but I'm just going to scroll a little bit. Let me just see if I can move this. Whoops. I'm going to try to move back on that. Just hold on. There we go. So this is your blog site. There's a bunch of great blogs, and this one's called Grief is Awkward. It's written November 25. And before I give it back to you, just to tell us about this site, I really appreciate this. But look at this, everyone. It says, I have a few phrases I hate. How can I help? How are you? What can I do? There are no words, etc. But what I do know is simple. I don't want to forget him. I want to keep his memory close. So ask me about him. Ask what made him so fucking special. Ask about his death, his disease. So I really love what you've done there. And the part about writing and naming trauma, I'm very familiar with that, having studied trauma as a child, adult who was from a traumatic childhood. Tell me about this site a little bit.
Yeah, well, I use it as a place to just process. I process my own shit by writing.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I find, you know, especially in the beginning, when you lose a child, I think it's really scary for people because especially for people who also are processing their own loss of that child, right? People who were close to Shea or who was in their life or who knew him. And, you know, so I think people feel really awkward about how are they allowed to feel anything? Are they worried that theirs is going to be more magnified than mine? And that's going to make me, you know, there's just a process to it. You know, what's interesting is that I had not made any of this connections until after my son died. I've written pretty viscerally like this forever.
Yeah.
But, my son died, you know, somebody said, you know, this is an interesting way to connect, that you connect with your family. And my mother's family has run a funeral home for the last 120 years.
Wow.
And, you know, death was not something that was not talked about, right? Like the joke was, you'd ask my grandfather how his day was, and he'd say, I just grabbed the body from wherever and had to drive and got stuck in traffic, you know, like it was just an old school cranky funeral parlor guy. And so I think just people need a lot of help in processing it for themselves, but also in helping people do that. And, you know, I'm not gonna be a funeral director anytime soon. But I do think that there is value in helping people understand. You know, I know when we lost Shea, I consumed every podcast I could, every book I could read. I was just in thirst for understanding and kind of feeling like there was somebody who got it. And I think that's going to look different for everybody, but especially for men. The loss of a child, even when you hear about the loss of a child, like I think what comes to people's mind is a mother who lost a child. And I don't know if that's made up in my head or the reality of my experience, but I'll tell you from a pure experience standpoint, the literature that is written is very heavily via a feminine experience and through the mother's experience. And, I felt like I needed people to feel okay, not talking about the woo-woo side of things and just saying,
Sure.
I'm fucking pissed. This sucks, right? Like, this, be
Yep.
mad about it and let me be mad about it. Cause it's just, I just process things differently. And so my writing is designed to.
Yeah. It's we'll put the website in the show notes, but neilcallanan.com. Congratulations on getting that site up. I just want to riff on you and what you said there, because it is storytelling. That it's true. I mean, I don't know what it comes from, Neil. I mean, my dad was a military commanding officer in the British and then Canadian forces. So kick your ass if you don't perform, and be tough and don't show your weakness. And, our dog died and there was no tears or anything. And one of the things connected to you and your story is, I told you offline, I don't talk about it. I haven't talked about it for a long time. So maybe you're teaching me here. Well, you actually are. Like, I lost my first child, little Tommy, and I can't compare, obviously, but I lost him just at term. He was widespread Down syndrome, and all the dreams I had of him and I doing the things guys do, and just disappeared on us. And I still can remember talking to you the day we got the word that he wasn't going to survive. And my wife was at the bank. She was a manager, and I was in another bank as a manager. That's where we met. We've been married 30 years, and I'll be quick on this. But she gets a call from Children's Hospital, calls me, and then she gets in her car, I get in mine, and that long drive down there, man. And then we were told what was going to happen very quickly. And I haven't talked about it, and I think it's a lot of what you said, that I've been studying a lot in my doctorate, which I'm doing now, that identity shapes and unfolds through other people. It's relational. And man, I want to honor you for this, that when you tell your story, I'm actually seeing me in your story, and I'm learning about myself. So God bless you. And I know that others who have lost people in their lives will do the same. As a man, get back into Plato's, as a man, you can say anything you want about anything I say, by the way. So as a man, how did you learn to receive support rather than perform strength after losing Shea, I think is? Because a lot of us, as you just said, it's like we don't learn to accept it. So it just seems like you had this special way about you.
Yeah, I want to give you a genuine answer there. I'm not 100% convinced that some of it's not performative, right? I think there's a level of control that we all want to feel, and especially in the midst of something like losing a child, which is like the definition of feeling like there's no control. Writing is something I can control. Talking to people, speaking out loud, doing interviews, whatever. It's all things I could control, and so I'm no stranger to the idea of manufactured control can sometimes be what you're presenting as, right? Let me present a strength. Now, I think for me, where I would say I diverge a little bit from the idea of just, I'm not quite in the Stoic Buddhist, the world is just how you react to the bad things that will happen to you kind of response. I do think there's a level of, when you experience trauma like that, you kind of faking it till you make it, and that can be okay, right? Feeling a little bit of control because you can help people understand how to talk to you better. Yeah, that control is not fixing your grief, and it's not going to fix your trauma, but I think it's a little self-fulfilling, right? I feel a little bit more in control. I feel a little bit less like I'm just spinning out entirely. And I think we all do it in our own ways. And I don't want, for my daughter's sake, or, there's been folks who have experienced loss in my life who dealt with it in sort of the opposite way, kind of keep it close. Don't really know when to talk about it. Don't make it a big part of who they are. They're discussions. And I just knew I didn't want that. And that might not be the right thing for everybody, but I knew that I didn't want that. We talk about our son every day. My daughter is very happy to tell people about her brother. And that's, if I'm proud of anything, it's that we're helping her process.
That's very awesome.
That's
How
awesome.
old is she now, your daughter?
She's 8.
Yeah. You and I talked offline, but I was telling you that after little Tommy left us, the miracle of my daughter came a year later, and it didn't replace him, but that certainly is a blessing. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, I would say a good. I want to give a shout out before we get too far on. There's a group called Sad Dads Club.
Oh yeah,
they have done excellent work when it comes to men and loss.
Yeah,
a lot of their group is actually more aligned with your experience, being sort of prenatal or perinatal loss, and they just do a really great job. And so I would say if anybody in the audience is experiencing, any men are experiencing the loss and they're looking for a source, Sad Dads is the place. They have Discord channels with everything from talking about how to get your tattoos from your parents to how to tell your parents to fuck off, to how to deal with finances post loss. It's a really
that's awesome. I appreciate that. I wrote it down in my paper here in the studio. Just going to tell you that I make copious notes, and I've got already a lot of Neil-isms growing here, and you're a wealth of information. I think that's one of the cool things about having you on, and for others, is you have knowledge that they can turn into action. The last thing I want to say just on this whole thing about writing and talking about it, and for guys in particular, like I say, it's okay to say when you're not okay. But for me, naming the shame when I lost my son, naming the shame that I felt and naming the emotions and talking about it actually helps with the healing process, which you're teaching us.
Yeah, and I would say a really cool example of that, what I would say is when you get into losses, when I go back to the suit up example, which is, entirely unexpected, one of the counselors that we spoke with said, we actually just talked to a family who suffered some loss to suit up, and the mother was upset with herself for not continuing to sleep in the same room with her son. Her son was 27, lived in a different state, right?
Oh, my goodness.
We're all gonna feel like we should have done things differently. There's a way we could have been a better protector, a better provider. But the truth is, you can't, right? With a disease that's this mysterious and this unexpected. So I think understanding that you can't protect people all the time is a big part of this change that you're going to experience. Wow.
Thanks for sharing that. We'll put him back on the screen here for a minute, not to overuse that picture, but what's one of the funniest memories you have of him, if you can think of one?
Funny. We were just talking to some friends who were going to up to Niagara Falls. We live not too far from Niagara Falls, and Shea, when he was, I think we were maybe 3.5, 4, he had just kind of gotten through the potty training phase, and we were up on there's a big Ferris wheel or whatever you want to call it over on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and we were about all the way up to the top, and he just decided that's where he was going to relieve himself. And of course, it's like you're inside a bubble. There's nothing you can do. It's got carpeted seats and carpeted floors. You can't clean anything up. And it was a memory my daughter was talking about the other day of just like the idea that for him that was mostly funny, and little boy humor of bathroom talk and all that's just. I would say one of the things I miss is just the way a little boy can make fun of themselves and laugh at their little mistakes. And you're experiencing as a parent, and there's no control. You can't do anything about it.
No.
You're trying to decide: are we going to tell the people they have to stop the whole Ferris wheel at the bottom to clean the thing? Don't tell anybody. It's a whole.
That's too funny. Well, it gets back to the brain. What I've learned through studying my own neuroscience is the frontal lobe. The kids get you get use of it at age 25 by science. So they just blurt stuff out. They don't rationalize that sounds stupid or whatever. And I actually read something, Neil, that they said, because I'm an advocate for mental health, that if you want to be happy and experience joy, go watch children play. And so I think that story you just told was insightful.
Yeah, he had a big ability to exude and verbalize when he was excited.
That's
So we
cool.
have these stickers all over the place. I don't know if I have one right in front of me here, but of him, you know, we have a video of him on his bicycle with a cape on and a lollipop in his mouth, screaming woohoo at the top of his lungs. Like he verbalized it in a way that, you know, if you can see that kind of thing in others, I think it makes you feel a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
You can experience your own a little bit of joy.
Exactly.
In that same way.
Yeah, these chemicals the brain creates. One I think is oxytocin, where you feel joy and happiness. It's kind of like that's why people have dogs too. Like the love that comes from children, pretty amazing. Before we get into Mezzo, which is the sector around your life and your work, just a couple more quick things here. What advice can you give from your lived experience about coming alongside your wife, and how how you did that, or what were some of the things that you remember that you'd tell others?
I would say it's a learning process, right?
Yeah.
It's like the statistics around marriage post loss of a child are pretty bad. And
really, do you know what? Can you quote that, or just in
I would
general?
be wrong in quoting the number, but I know it's bad.
It's high. It's high, right?
Yeah, the
Wow.
levels of divorce are really high in folks who've lost a child.
Mm.
And so I think for she and I, the thing we're continually trying to understand is that our experiences are different. Our experiences with the day of Shea's death were entirely different. Our experiences with medicine and hospitals and all the things were very different.
Yeah.
And so therefore our triggers are different, and the things that really weigh on us are the things that, what you learn about the partnership with your spouse is that you can easily end up at the least common denominator. And you got to avoid doing that. Meaning, if you're both as sad as the saddest one of you all the time, then instead of it being, hey, she's really sad today and I started feeling really sad tomorrow, you're just both really fucking sad all the time. And so I think you got to give each other the space to feel your emotions without being codependent on each other. We can only have a good day if we're both feeling really good today, because the chances of that happening are really limited, especially in the beginning when you're just totally overwhelmed.
No, I love what you said there, and it makes me reflect when Anna, the day we went through that, she was in bed, and she's very tough. She's Italian, she's strong, very outgoing, bubbly kind of personality. I'd never seen her sad or just quiet. She doesn't communicate, so it's like, but I think what I did was accepting her where she's at without any judgment, doing a lot of listening. And I had some anger because she had 2 children. So when I married her, we married 30 years, but she had 2 teenage boys. And I went through this anger stage, man. It's like, fuck this. I lost, I don't have one of my own kind of thing. It was such stupid thinking. But we got through it together by talking it out and seeking resources for sure. What has grief taught you about stillness versus productivity in a culture that rewards constant moving forward?
Forward is it's a fallacy. There's no end point. You're not going to get to perfection. There's not going to be a parade at the point in your career or your business or your life or your fitness or your goals or whatever, where there's a parade. I mean, yes, there's people in the Olympics today doing cool stuff, and they might be able to look at that as the pinnacle of their sporting experience. And my guess is it's really fucking hard for them the week after they get home from winning that thing, because they just don't have a purpose anymore. And so I think for me, what grief has taught me is that living your life in the future. I was a person who lived my life very much in the future, right? We're financially smart, and if I just do these things and we run the business and we hit growth to there, and my wife continues on her career trajectory, and we pay off this mortgage and we have this thing, we're going to hit this utopia.
Yeah.
And that's, I know very much not to be true anymore, because, your world can get rocked and then all that shit doesn't matter. I'd take $1 million in debt for 10 minutes with my son right now. And so financial responsibility or career trajectories or whatever, it's not to say that I'm a believer that they don't matter. It's
Yeah.
my belief is that they have to bring you energy in the present. And if you're waiting for whatever you're doing to be solely something that you like, that you will enjoy the outcome of, I just think it's a really tough way to live your life. And so whether it's thinking differently about how you make your decisions in your job or your where you spend your energy or your money, um, I think it's pretty important that you spend it under the idea that that is a resource that you need to enjoy now. And yes, you can save and you can be smart and you can do things to work towards a goal, but don't train for the marathon and hope you're going to be really excited at the end of the marathon. Like, you got to enjoy training for the marathon. If you enjoy running, then do that
That's
thing.
right. That's right.
You enjoy working in your business and working with really great people, then yes, you should still work towards the growth exit goal that you have or whatever the thing is for you. But you should be enjoying it along the way. And I was very much, I'm in the future. We don't have to worry about how overwhelmed I am now or how poorly I'm spending my energy now.
Yeah.
Because in the future, it's going to be amazing once I hit all these benchmarks and these milestones.
Yeah, no, what the experience sounds like, it's been very reflexive for you, reflecting on the past and prioritizing what's important. It's interesting that I read a book by an American doctor, Dr. Anna Lemke, about dopamine. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of dopamine. I didn't know this, Neil, but you kind of said it and illustrated it in thinking ahead to the big achievement. And you said about the skier, and then after it's like but the dopamine system is a reward system that I understand. And you get the little hits of dopamine, not at the end, but along the way. And the more of those you get, the more you can redo that. And there's like rushes. So I think he taught us something there. Everybody come back, listen to that story Neil just told, that living in the moment and, taking perspective on not just it's about the big things of the future is a very good thing to reflect on. So I think it's awesome. I'm going to take a turn into mezzo now. You having fun? Even though it's such a hard topic. You're such a great guy. So mezzo is about the sector where you do work. So now we're going to get all over your work. So you told me offline that you were an employee and then something interesting happened and you were sort of no longer an employee and then you started something, you're a founder. Wrap anything you want to say about your business into this question. So you've said, or I've read anyway, and I perceive that the last 15 months or so changed your leadership more than the previous years. What specifically no longer works for you as a leader in your business?
I think it's very aligned with what we just spoke about. Meaning, when you realize control is a bit of a fallacy, then it changes how you perceive how you want the interactions to be and how willing you are to let yourself be drained by the things that are not the right thing. So I'm a recovering scarcity mindset person, right? Like I'm always worried that I've been running our company LooseGrip for almost 17 years. We've never had to lay anybody off for financial reasons. We've never had a bad quarter.
That's awesome, by the way. That's rare.
But I'm still convinced next quarter is going to be the one that we do. Right? Like, that's just
there you go again. Mind going to the future, but you're paid to look to the future, right?
Yeah. So I think, one of the things that I learned was that I don't have the control that I thought I had. And when you see that, you can kind of realize how much you overstate your own importance.
Yeah.
So in my experience, what I would say is two things. One is, when we lost Shea, I would have paid so much money to have a job where I could have just been terrible at my job and it would have been somebody else's problem. And they probably couldn't have fired me because I was, a nice guy, and they would have kept me around and kept giving me a salary. That was not my case, right? Like I was the sole provider for our family at that point in time and was running the business. And I realized now, looking back, that I kind of overstated my own importance in the work that we did. And it's not to say there's not specific areas where I think I'm uniquely qualified amongst our team of 10 to be the person who's doing the thing. But man, I didn't look at an email. I didn't respond to anyone. I didn't go to a meeting for 3 months. Everything was
Really?
okay. Everything was okay. My team was great. That's why you hire a great team. That's why you work with great people, right?
Yeah.
It's not so that when it's great, it's great. It's so that if it's bad, it's less bad, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess I see now that I can look for opportunities as a business leader to amplify impact rather than generate the impact at the very bottom, right? And carry it all the way through. So that might look like, if we're doing a presentation to our team, to a client, or we're doing a big data storytelling exercise, there's certain parts I'm really good at. And I think my team will say, yep, you should be involved. But now I'm a little bit more willing to say, like, what stuff am I not helpful? Where am I negative in any of these areas? Where can you guys do better without me in the way? Where is my over talking, screwing up this meeting, right? Where's the client relationship for you not as good because I'm clinging to that relationship? And I think that happened by force, and now I'm really thankful for it. I have less meetings now than I've ever had, and I'm less involved in our client work than I've ever been, and the company's doing as good as it's ever.
That's pretty awesome, man. You're pretty young. You don't have to say your age, but you're roughly, give me a range. Where are you at with your age?
The range is that I'm 41.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why I said it that way. I'm so used to talking to people, women particularly don't like you asking. So you're 41. I'm going to put some on the stage here and just riffing on a bunch of things you said. I got to look at the notes. Memory-wise, it doesn't all stick. So I love the recording scarcity mindset, team of 10. And it made me think of one thing when you said, you're almost like trusting your team more and leveraging them. We were taking a ferry trip. You mentioned something about the Vancouver Island and something you're looking at doing in the future there. So hopefully to meet you one day. And we have these big ferries, right? They're 300-car ferries made in Germany. And if you can just visualize it for a moment, when I told my daughter this, who's 28 now and getting into senior work, I said, when you're in the ship serving, loading the car deck, serving the meals to people, you're looking down and in, you're operating the ship. When you're on the deck as the captain, you're looking up and out. And so it's something you said that I learned from just now is that you as a founder, you look, like you said, you have a team of 10, you haven't laid anybody off or let people go, but you're always thinking the next month could be that. And I think what I got out of that is you're actually paid to do that. The founder, and some have boards, is to look up and out for the danger. And I think that's a great thing. I want to give you kudos on that because you do that. And it's a strength because somebody has to do it. The company itself, LooseGrip, it's a cool name, but tell us about that. Like, I just read parts of what you do. I think it's interesting. Storytelling, activism, brands. Why that? Why start? And what is it? What do you guys do?
Sure. So LooseGrip is a riff on the idea that in a lot of sports, mostly, looser grip is actually associated with better performance, higher speed, better distance, whatever, right? So golf, mountain biking, baseball, right? Like if you just try to like grip on so hard, you're actually going to see less results. And so
I see.
LooseGrip kind of came from the idea that we could help brands just ease up a little bit on how much they thought they could control of their experience that their customers or their prospects were having with what they do. And I would say, so we've been a bunch of different variations of the same company as the industry has changed, right? When in the beginning I was 24 or something, right? That people would pay me to do social media because that's what you pay a 24-year-old to do.
Yeah.
Over time, that's changed a lot, right? We are very focused in on data and bringing insights to life and storytelling. That's kind of the core of what we do. And today, especially since Shea's death, we've really been focused in on helping brands who have an activism bent, a values bent, a do-goodery, a purpose, helping them understand how that purpose is impacting their bottom line. And that can come in the form of content measurement or insights around their web visitors or digital commerce or whatever it might be. But our goal is to really help those brands and nonprofits find ways to measure what their impact is. And the more that they can measure it, we believe the more likely they'll be able to keep doing it and do it the right way.
That's awesome.
We launched a sub-brand called Grasp. We do focus entirely on activism forward brands who are trying to measure both purpose and profits at the same time.
Is Grasp on the company website? Like, can you find out about?
You would find out. The best place to find out about Grasp is actually graspyourimPact.com.
I see.
There you can kind of hear a little bit about some of the brands we work with and the workshops and all that.
Interesting. Yeah. So as you talk, you invoke in me stories. So I was thinking about Canada. Well, I've worked both sides of the border in my career, but I'm very fascinated by what you do. And in Canada, and the CEOs of most companies have what's called a scorecard. So their goals, I don't know if you're familiar with metrics. One of them is corporate social responsibility, which goes right to what you're saying. So what impact are you trying to make on society? Like, we have a local credit union, which is like your community banks. I actually have my business there, and they're the largest one in the country. They're about the size of a big bank. Anyway, their thing is about the community, the environment. So it's not just financial services, and a lot of stuff they do around their branding is like that. So when would somebody come to you? When would they say, "Hey, I think we need to go talk to LooseGrip"? What would their need be?
Yeah, I would say for most companies who we deal with are at the point where, especially in the States, and you and I could have another episode about the U.S.-Canada relationship today, but we, in the U.S. specifically, there's been a lot of downward pressure on environmental, social responsibility, activism, brands being willing to stick their neck out or have a purpose or, commit to bettering the planet. And I think that ebbs and flows a little bit, but I think especially when the pressure is downward, a lot of those brands need ways to measure how that impact is changing their purpose, right? So not only the number of trees that were planted or the number of shoes donated or the number of people they signed up for voting rights or whatever it is, but also how does that impact their for-profit side of the business? Because most brands who are activism forward, values forward, doing so is a big part of who they are, but they really struggle to quantify what that means.
Interesting.
And so we work with brands where they'll come in and they'll say, we're getting told to say less, keep our mouth a little quieter, don't ruffle the feathers of the administration or the right wing or whatever it might be. And we can look at using data and say, not only here's the impact you have when you do that, but it might actually help you sell more of your stuff. Your customers are committed to your brand. They're more invested in spending money with you.
Sure.
And that has traditionally been a very loosey-goosey. Yes, we do it for the planet, but we can't really tell you how well it's happening or whether that impacts how much stuff we sell on the for-profit side. And our goal is to help companies kind of connect the dots.
Yeah. Are you guys serving different segments, like small, medium, large enterprise all over the country, or is it just in certain parts of the U.S.?
No, we serve companies all over the globe. Even though we're only 10 people, we have a pretty wide group, including 4 in Canada, by the way. So we serve anybody who is the right fit for us, and the size is strangely less important about their market cap or the number of employees. But
I see.
Where we are really effective is with brands who have a lot of data, because honestly, what we do is reliant on there being good data, or data of some kind that we can make into good data. So what that can look like is it can be a small organization, but if they have a lot of throughput on the number of people come to their website or their number of social media interactions or the number of people who listen to their podcast or sign up for their newsletter, all of those buckets get kind of rolled up into one place where we can run all the smart data engineers on our team at it and say, what are we seeing? So it's not necessarily a requirement that a company be big, but I do think brands who have a large presence is sort of core to the types of companies that we work with best.
Oh, that's interesting. I won't get into the weeds because this isn't about technical, but it's interesting. Canada, you've got some clients. I'm assuming when you're doing business with Canadian clients, you're billing in US dollars. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things you and I can talk offline, because I'm just completing a doctorate in trademarking something, and I'm going to be probably needing to talk to somebody about my branding and my platform, especially with my story. But we got a 40% dollar differential too. So one of the things I want to do is ramp up my revenue generation in the U.S. So you and I can talk, because I'm fascinated. You're a very smart guy. This interesting thing, I just want to share a connection you made in my mind about maybe people will buy more of our stuff. Man, that's a teaching moment on the show for me. So what I mean by that is, so my daughter, she works on the other side of the country. She just moved back here, but she got her degree in environmental, and she's doing a master's now. Very smart, smarter than me. And she worked for a company that looks after the watersheds, right? So we have a beautiful country, just like America, with lots of watersheds and lots of tree lines. And when she was growing up in her high school, she started the first recycling program in her high school. And I started seeing little threads, much like you probably saw in Shea about his isms and your daughter, about this kid thinks differently. And then she started in her preteen years working for the Golden Arches. I won't say the name. I don't want to get sued. And after a week, she came home and says, I don't like working there. And she read the employee handbook, and she just talked about all the waste and packaging, and she just didn't like. Well, today her whole thing is, so last part of the story is she won't deal with Amazon. And I don't want to trash Amazon because I use them for stuff, but sometimes I'll get a product this big come in a box this big because the distribution packing team ran out of boxes. So why I'm getting at this about what you said is relevant, and may get the audience to reflect on this too, is if you want my daughter to buy stuff from your company, you better understand your impact. And all the things you said matter to her. And so that's fascinating. We can do another show on this, because demographics, you can comment, but I think demographics differ too, right? With the consumers that are younger versus the boomers.
Yeah, well, and I would say when you look at the brands who have the highest affinity, do just a generic search on high affinity brands, you're going to find that 6 or 7 of the top 10 have a pretty forward stance on something. And I would say the ones who do it best are also most willing to look at themselves, right? So the reason Patagonia is always held as this gold standard of a for-profit company who has a really strong presence in environmental causes, is because they're the first people who will tell you when they're doing a bad job. They do self-reporting. They look at the numbers and say, "Hey, we're not meeting the goals we wanted for our clothing production in Southeast Asia." Or we actually, the famous Yvon Chouinard ad is an ad that said, "Do not buy this fleece." And
interesting.
Said, buy a used one, fix yours. Our stuff's made for more than just replacing. And obviously, if you took that on its surface, it's going to seem like that's going to not have the intended goal of people buying more stuff. But I think what it does is it creates longer term relationships with your prospects and your customers and people like your daughter who, maybe they don't buy 7 fast fashion fleeces, but maybe they'll spend the $250 with you once every 5 years, and they're proud to wear it. It gives them a feeling that they're connected to. And I would just say, a lot of brands, I think, are struggle to measure that in a way that they can say, brand just becomes this thing. We do branding for brand's sake, so people love our experience. But no, there's ways to understand it.
For sure.
We're real believers that if you bring some data to it, it helps you have those conversations internally when somebody comes and says, "Why would we run an ad saying not to buy our product? That's insane," right? Well, let me show you how it is, right? Yeah. Let me show you how many net new email followers we generated the next day. Let us look at the next ad that we run. How much more reach did that one get? All the different things that could.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. I just throw a curveball out there. When does measurement serve meaning, and when does it begin to distort it, if anything?
It's a really good question. There's a saying in business culture about the hippo, right? Which is the highest paid person's opinion, and how meetings meetings, the decisions are made by the hippo, which is literally just the person who makes the most money in the meeting.
Yeah.
and oftentimes the CEO or whoever, right? In measurement, there is an analogous piece that is the biggest number is going to be the most important. And so it's really easy to get swayed by glamour metrics that don't really tie to anything. And so I think the mistake that happens is people say, let's just measure everything, and that will help us get smarter. And the reality is that when you measure everything, there's always going to be a piece of information that tells you what you want to hear. And so the less that you measure, if you do it intentionally, and the less you try to make decisions based on what you measure, I think you just sort of future proof yourself from saying, "Oh, look, we got 7 billion impressions on our Super Bowl ad. Isn't that amazing?" You go, okay, well, the example I was talking to somebody about today was there's a Ben Stiller and Benson Boone commercial in the Super Bowl. That was a very funny commercial. And we were both talking about how good that commercial was. And neither of us could remember what the brand was. No
Oh boy.
context of what it is, right? So, I think you can always find a number to tell you you're doing amazing. And
Yeah.
I think when you do that, you miss on opportunities to do better, because you're not going to start doing better unless you're being specific about what is most important and then looking that thing in the eye.
Sure.
It's happening or it's not happening.
Well, everybody, we're here with Neil Callanan and with founder of LooseGrip, and talking about his epic story of his life. Just by what you said there, again, this is why Plato's Garden storytelling works for me, and you too, is so many things came to mind. It's like, if I deal with a company and a brand and I can see in its story part of me, that attracts me. And as I said, I'm just finishing a doctorate, and my doctorate thesis is actually called "The Quiet Revelation: Unfolding Identity in a Complex World." And Neil, I've done so much research and stuff, just even to try and find myself as a person, that what's happening between the two of us is in the relational space between us. We're talking, we're hearing things, but we're creating new knowledge. And what I've learned is, and I'm not perfect, but if I can see something in your story that my brain can relate to, I'm actually seeing myself in you. And that creates a trust and psychological safety, and we do deepen the relationship. And by the way, leaders don't do that very well. They don't take time to do what you and I are doing, getting to know deep and trust. So that's kind of like why your topic and your company, I'm an advocate. People listening, go get on a call and talk to Neil. Just get to know him. That's so important. The last thing I'll say is probably a little controversial, is a lot of people I talk to in senior leadership say especially in education, we can't even predict the future. We don't know what it's going to look like. You've got AI making an impact now, et cetera. And I'm a guy who came through 3 sectors where there was total transformation, right? Telecommunications, financial services, where automation just totally transformed. And so that is something maybe we can have you back to talk about, is what's that one thing that's on the horizon? What's that trend? What's that thing that people are going to care about in the next generation, et cetera? And I call it forward-proofing your business. But fascinating stuff. We're going to take a last turn into macro, ask you something here, and then I got a couple things to honor you with. An award is one of them. I call this macro, which is like the global world around you. So this is going back to Shea's story, so I'm going to pull you back there a bit. Why do you think the modern culture struggles to sit with grief, especially male grief? Oh, sorry, you already told us a bit about that. Let's do this. If purpose-driven business is going to survive the next decade, what must change in how we define ROI? Anything come to mind that's different than what you've talked about?
Yeah, I would say that you have to measure the impact of your purpose and not shy away from also measuring the impact on your profits. And I think my take is that we live in a world in which, in some cases, the brands who are actually doing the most, right, the most good, they're really committed to these things, are almost too highbrow about, well, we don't care about what how that impacts our profits. We're trying to change the world. Well, the profits are what pay you to have a job and pay you to keep working. And I think, I'm still a pretty ardent capitalist. I just think you could do it really, really well.
Yeah.
If we're also committed to doing well. So committed to doing well for the planet. So I guess I would say profits and purpose are not mutually exclusive, and actually I think measured properly, they align really, really well, and hopefully in an upward growth trajectory. So don't shy away. I hope brands don't shy away from investing in purpose, but also I hope they don't shy away from looking at how that impacts the bottom line.
Yeah, that's very profound. In our own country, and America's going through something too, because I'm very up on your environment because I have a lot of guests and I do a lot of research, staying up on it, so I don't sound like an idiot talking to guys like you. But we have a country where we've got Western provinces. Alberta's one. It used to be the oil patch, and it's rich in black gold under the ground. And we have governments that pass policies because they were listening a lot to the activism, about protect the environment. So let's look at alternative energies and things. But the truth is that it's killed our country in some ways. Alberta can't survive. It's rich in oil. It can't do what it wants to do because the government will pass policies like you can't have pipelines across the country, or you can't drill and extract. And that's why I think your conversation's interesting to me, because it's profits or purpose profits. But sometimes I think you have to balance that line and say, well, wait a minute. Profits, in order to grow and have our base of our company survive, sometimes you have to do things that are seen as unpopular for purpose, and then show that, okay, here's how we're going to put guardrails around that. And we're finding now that we're having to do things differently in our country about energy, because there's just not enough ways for us to generate it. And then with AI, I'm pontificating here on reason. I know a lot about AI because I use it, but the power needed to generate stuff like that, even, it's like our grid won't support what's needed. So it's like now maybe we have to look for little mini nuclear power plants and things. And then you always have people saying, not in my backyard, you can't put up things like that. So it's a great conversation, and we'll continue at another time. But on that note, I'd like to get into two more quick ones and then a wrap up. So I call this the unwritten book question, and this is just reaching out there. If there was a book you are not yet ready to write, the one that lives between your lived grief and your professional clarity, what might it be about? Anything at all?
Yeah, I think you can see from my writing, I think it would be about grief through a male experience, likely.
Awesome.
I think.
Love it.
Something that where it felt okay to be pissed and to swear and to just want to rage a little bit, right? I think men have a little different reaction, and I think telling them otherwise can actually have negative.
Yeah, well said. Got an applause from the audience here, the fake audience. If you just keep blogging like you are, because your blogs are great, everybody go to the website that he blogs, neilcallanan.com. If you just, little things like take that collection, you can, there's a book there waiting. You just have to wrap around it some things. My advice to you, I don't need to give you advice, man, but I've written 3 books. My first one I wrote is a fable, but also a memoir. Story is the way to go. Facts and figures don't sell, but stories are incredible. People won't put them down. I think your book is waiting to be written. The last question here comes from the new segment we're doing called the Warrior's Torch. And we asked the last guest, who's actually in New York, to come up with a question for you. And we didn't tell them who you are or anything about you. So they kept it pretty simple. You can throw this out and they're going to watch this. So what is the next big step in your life? I know, hey?
I'm going to give a non-answer, which is, I think for me, the evolution has to be in not looking for the next big step all the time, and towards contentment and towards recognizing.
That's a big step.
The good when it's there, right? Yeah. So the step is not a step for me, I guess I would say.
Well, that's a virtual applause for me. Why I like that answer so much. Congratulations on that answer. Tony Robbins, right? He's known everywhere in the world. And he taught me one thing, that in my values list, my old values, like I come from a broken childhood. My dad left when I was 12. You can read my book and learn about me, but he was addicted to alcohol, physically. I was a black and blue kid. I had all that trauma. I never dealt with it till probably the last 5 years since he died. But Tony taught me that I was living with a value called significance. And so when we live with significance, it's about stuff, the quality of life, quantity of stuff. It took me a long time to realize that life's not about stuff. It's about living in the moment and living fully. And you just taught us that with your answers. So I'm really impressed with that answer, especially from a guy who's a young man like you. Let's go to awarding you. Did you know you're getting an award today?
I had no idea.
Good.
My mom's going to be so proud.
What's her name?
Eleanor.
Okay, Eleanor. We're proud of.
She's not going to be proud because she's never listened to it.
Okay. Well, I know you'll send the replay to Eleanor and she'll be proud. Eleanor, we're proud of Neil. We're proud of everything about this story. I'm just going to add something to the stage here to show you. Next time I ask you that question, did you know you're getting an award? You go, yeah, Tom told me. Hey, Neil, we're over 330 long form interviews. The show's just gone so well. But when I started, I said, I want to have an award to give to the 1% of people who come through it. And as you know, I vet. So you can't get on easy. You have to be authentic, real, and show you're doing something with your story. So I had a challenge coin made. Have you heard of challenge coins?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So for the audience, they surfaced in World War I. This comes with it. And the practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces, carrying the coin at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with that unit resulted in a number of consequences. Some of them being the soldier didn't have their coin bought drinks, and apparently that still happens today. So this practice continues around the world. I'm sure you've come across challenge coins, first responders. My dad was in AA. They had their own version. So I had it hand-painted, crafted, minted in the U.S. And so here is the Quiet Warrior Show coin. It's hefty, the show. But on the back is the narrative of the hero's journey by Joe Campbell, kind of the journey you took, dealing with something, turning it into something to teach the world to be better. So congratulations. Welcome to the community, man.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. So I'll get offline. We can email me the address. So last word goes to you, just where we can get a hold of you, anything at all you haven't said, and we'll send an honor with that award for Shea as well.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about my boy. It's something I'm always psyched about. And if you want to learn more about me or him, my blog's a great place to do that. And if you want to learn more about the work that we do at LooseGrip, check out graspyourimpact.com. That's where we talk about our framework and purpose and profits and all the things.
That's awesome. And if you hate spreadsheets, don't call him, call his team.
Yeah, if you want help with your spreadsheets,
he's not going to call you.
Is going to be find somebody else.
I think spreadsheets are a thing of the past according to AI's automation. Anyway, that's awesome. So everybody, find your true purpose, like you've heard here from Neil. Find that life you want to live with, but live the life you deserve and desire. And we'll see you all again next week on the Quiet Warrior Show. And Neil, it's been a pleasure, man. You're in for the long haul. Have a good one.
You too.
Whoops.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Okay, just stand by there for a second. We'll edit all this together.